Please stay with us. Dan Simon there on the streets of Albuquerque giving us the very latest information as it seems the remnants of this anti-Donald Trump protest starts to die down. Yeah. Let's bring in Dave Jacobson, a Democratic strategist, and John Thomas, who's a Republican strategist as well. You know, as people around the country that they tune into these images, and it's not the first time we've seen this, you know, and it's at a Donald Trump rally. It's not happening on the other side of politics here. What is it about the Republican side of politics this year, John, that is causing so much anger? You know, is it just Donald Trump's rhetoric? Is it language? What is it?
Well, and let's be fair, Ferguson had nothing to do with Donald Trump, and that was quite violent and disgusting as well.
Okay, but I'm talking about political rallies here. You don't see this kind of stuff going on at a Hillary Clinton rally or a Bernie Sanders rally. I mean, this has been mostly in Chicago and in Kansas and now in Albuquerque.
Well, because he's saying a lot of things that are polarizing to some Americans. So obviously you're going to see peaceful protests, and that's healthy. That's part of our process. That's what you would expect. But when it turns from peaceful to violent, it's disgusting. I read just a few minutes ago, the New York Times reported that these protesters were throwing rocks at the police horses. I mean, who does that? It's
clearly the people on the streets of Albuquerque.
I think it's fresh evidence, guys, that this is downright terrifying. And this is just a preview of what we're going to see in the months ahead for the general election. And I think it's a direct result of Donald Trump sort of inciting violence and fear and scaremongering and dividing people with his racist and sexist comments that he's spewing out all across the country.
So, John, as you know, to listen to Dave, clearly, regardless of who was behind these protests, they will be tied to Donald Trump. They started outside a Donald Trump rally. The question is, will there be louder calls for him to change his rhetoric, to do his part to tamp down the anger?
I'm sure there will be calls from Senator Sanders supporters and Hillary Clinton supporters.
I mean, really among the GOP establishment.
I don't think so, because I think, in fact, this may serve as a uniting force within the GOP to remind people that, look, this is chaotic. America's on the wrong track. You know, we need a new direction in America, and we're not getting it from the current administration. And it started with Ferguson. You know, this is not alone. So, no, I don't think you're going to so much see it from the Republican side. I think it does hand an opportunity to Secretary of State Clinton. She's going to go on a uniting theme. I mean, that's what we're going to hear for the next couple of days.
But John, I mean, you know, we made the point last hour. You know, Donald Trump is not responsible for the people outside throwing rocks and bottles and setting fires and all this kind of stuff. But Dave, I guess, you know, I'm wondering that as someone who is running for the highest office in the land, someone who's saying, I want to be the leader of this country, I want to be the leader of the free world, doesn't that come with certain responsibilities, whether you like it or not? Whether, you know, your rhetoric works for you in a primary campaign or whatever, there's a certain level of responsibility that comes with that campaign that you have to take claim of.
Sure, because the end result in January of 2017 is, you know, when you are sworn in as President of the United States, you don't just represent Republicans and or independent or Democratic voters, you represent all Americans. And that's ultimately what the next president is going to have to do. And I think that's going to be the struggle for Donald Trump moving forward, is how is he going to make the case to, you know, sort of Main Street Americans that he's going to be able to unite the country, bring everyone together, and move the country forward.
And John, there's a real issue for Trump here, that it is this rhetoric that has boosted his appeal amongst his base. So how do you tamp that down when you benefited from it? I mean, there's a real political calculation to be made here.
Sure there is, and he's going to have to shift his rhetoric on some things. I think we saw on the wall. I don't think he's going to walk away from that, but he may soften his rhetoric in terms of banning all Muslims. He has to soften some of that. But I'm remembering back to, look, Republicans protest too. It's Tea Party protests and others, but we're peaceful about it. And so the fact is, the violence has to end. And I think both candidates are going to have to come together and call for an immediate end, because we don't want to see this escalate. No party does.
Right. I mean, as we move towards the convention, so that's obviously going to be a key moment here. But the politics of all of this, if you're an independent voter, if you're sort of on the fence, and this is to you, Dave, so if you're on the fence, you're an independent voter, and you see this, I mean, which way do you go? Is it like, I can't believe they're trying to shut down Donald Trump, he has a right to say what he says, or Donald Trump is causing this? I mean, where does this lie?
I think it's the latter. It's Donald Trump is causing this. I think it speaks to his temperament and his judgment, and the fact, again, I keep saying this, I feel like a broken record, that he's spewing out this sort of hateful rhetoric that's really dividing the country. And Hillary Clinton's now got this new message, this brand that she's trying to create for the general election that says, hey, we are stronger together. She's trying to bring in moderate Republicans, independents, and of course all the Democrats, both her Democrats Democratic supporters and Bernie Sanders together to unite behind her.
I mean, as a Democrat, do you make a campaign out of this, or do you just sort of let this go and let it speak for itself?
I think if you're the Clinton campaign, you let it speak for itself. You don't want to capitalize on this.
I think the problem is it's a clever slogan, but 66% of Americans in the latest Gallup poll said that America's on the wrong track, and Hillary Clinton represents the establishment. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's very difficult.
Yeah, but Trump's unfavorables are pretty high as well, and this kind of stuff doesn't help him, regardless of whether it's his fault or not, you know, and that will be debated. It doesn't help him.
Certainly, if this happens night after night, it's not good for Donald Trump. The question is it a one-night thing, or does it happen night after night? I think it's going to die down. I think Americans are disgusted at what happened tonight, and I hope we don't see more of it.
I think also, John, you're right at a certain level, and this is where someone like Paul Ryan could potentially come in and say, hey, Donald Trump, let's tone down the rhetoric. You want my endorsement? Let's sort of calm the nerves. Let's talk about issues. Let's talk about policies. Let's talk about the economy and how we move the country forward. And I think if Donald Trump really listens to someone like Paul Ryan, who's sort of cool, calm, and collected when it comes to these issues in the presidential campaign, I think that's going to bode well for Trump.
What's the chance of that?
I don't think Donald Trump listens to many people, so I'm not holding my breath. Good idea, though.
I mean, that is the thing, is that there is that report out there by ABC that, you know, Ryan is ready to endorse Trump, but when you watch these images from tonight, if you're the Speaker of the House, very influential Republican, do you say, well, hang on, I've got to hold that back for a bit?
Yeah, he may not want to do it in tomorrow's news cycle,
Sure.
but I think he's still going to endorse the Republican presumptive nominee. And again, look, it's not Donald Trump's fault that people got violent tonight.
Sure.
And there are protesters outside of Obama's events. There are protesters outside of Sanders' events and Clinton's events. I guess the difference is they haven't turned too violent, although Senator Sanders did say that the convention would be messy.
Yeah.
We haven't seen tear gas.
We're not at the convention yet.
And those situations. So, guys, stand by for us. Thank you.
Dan Simon is back with us for an update of exactly what's been happening on the streets of Albuquerque. So, Dan, when we spoke a few moments ago, it did seem as if